I'm an alcoholic and I'm an addict. I'm a hardcore drug addict. My drug of choice are opiates and alcohol, but pretty much I did anything I could get my hands on. Before I came to Graceway, my story, it's very, it's very sad. You know, my disease started when I was very young, and I believe society doesn't believe that, alcoholism is a disease, because I didn't believe that when I got to Graceway. I thought, you've got to be kidding me. I have willpower. I should be able to quit this. And I tried that like 1,000 times, because society said, and my mom said, if you want to quit, you just can. And that was never the case. And so for me, I started really drinking and using when I was about 21 years old. And then my disease was just rapid. It got worse and it got worse. And we'll try to kind of make my story short. But the big thing was, I had 2 children that passed away. And so as soon as that happened, I started taking opiates to numb the pain. And drinking was a constant throughout my life. And then after that, my husband hung himself. And so, I walked into the room and I found him. So after that, I felt like there was no way out. I drank to make all of the pain go away. I never dealt with anything. And 5 days after my husband was buried, I found out I was pregnant with my son, Nicholas. And I have another living daughter named Phoenix. And anyway, and I ended up having my son on my husband's birthday. And so after I buried my husband, I had Nicholas on his birthday, which was a God thing. But then after I had my son, I thought the addiction would stop. I thought I'd be able to put it down, and it was 100 times worse. Where I picked up in my addiction again is exactly where I left off. It got worse and it got harder. I used so much. I took so many pills that I actually went into renal failure. I shut my liver and my kidneys down. I was on dialysis for 6 weeks. I was taking up to 30 Lortabs a day and about 20 Somas and about 10 Xanax, and that was to maintain. That was to get up and go to the mailbox. That was to get out of bed. That was not to get high, because towards the end of addiction, it's no longer about the high. It's about not being sick anymore. And, I think all drug addicts get to a point. I know I did when we say those 5 words, and, I wish I was dead. And that was the point where I knew that I needed help, but I didn't know how to ask for it, because in the midst of the disease, you don't think anybody knows about it. And it's a tornado. It's like a ripple effect. It destroys everything. It destroys the family. You put everything in pawn. You steal. You do things that you would not normally do, because it's this, you are a slave to the drug. I can't explain the power that it has over you, but nothing is important. Your children are not important. Your parents are not important, and society is not important. So after you do all these destructive things, you feel like there's just no hope. Unfortunately, I remember laying in my bed looking out of a window, and I had half a bottle of Crown and a full bottle of pills. So I had all the drugs and alcohol that I wanted, but I remember looking out of the window and going, I wish I were dead. And I didn't know how to ask for help. I had financially exhausted all of my funds, in the process of financially exhausting my parents' funds. And so basically it came down to where I had to go to detox. And I went to the Coliseum Medical Center in Macon, Georgia. I was on a high dose of phenobarbital to detox me from the alcohol and from the opiates. And it was horrific. It was just like you see in the movies. The tremors, the hallucinations, it was terrible. And that's what we fear the most, is not being able to get through that, because it is a fatal and deadly disease. And I could not understand at that point how anything was going to help me, especially 12 steps. Words, no way. It's not in a pill form, absolutely. I can't understand that. And but when I went to the Coliseum, there was a charge nurse there that was fantastic, and she told me I needed long-term treatment. And at the time, I'm thinking, I just need time, and I say this a lot, and I get emotional. I just needed the world to stop. I needed to deal with the death of my children. I needed to deal with the death of my husband, and I needed everybody to just stop. I needed the whole world to stop, and it just wouldn't. And I was being so destructive in the process. But she showed me the website of Graceway, and I remember watching it. And there was a woman on there that talked about getting over the suicide of her son. And then there was a little girl on there that said that she just didn't want her mommy to be sick. And something in me clicked, and I thought, that's where I need to go. And so after 7 days of detox, we got in touch with Graceway, and they opened their doors to me. And the hardest part was just getting there. But the best part was listening to hearing another person on the other line that was a drug addict. Because the thing is I have been to psychiatrists and I have been to therapists to try to do all of this. And they are great and they are wonderful, but I needed someone to look at me and go, it's going to be okay. You know, I've been on the other side. I've been through this. It does work. And that's exactly what Graceway did. And when I walked through the doors of Graceway, there is a very soothing and spiritual experience at the moment you walk through the door. Everybody has a different light about them. There's a welcoming that you cannot turn away, because when you walk in, you are sick, you are mad, you are frustrated, and you are mad at the world because for all of your actions. So as I got to Graceway, and I always say, you know, if you can just get through the doors of Graceway, if you can just get through the doors. And that is what Graceway did. Graceway opened on the phone and their website. It was so comforting and it was so real to me, because I didn't want to go somewhere that was just I didn't want to go to an institution. I just didn't want to do that. I didn't want to go where it was a medical facility, because that scared me and that made me feel like I was doomed and that like I was going to have to be in a straitjacket for the rest of my life, because I really did feel like that. But my experience in the house was very intense. You know, I remember getting there. I didn't know how to do chores. I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know how to do my laundry. I didn't know how to communicate with people that were not where I wasn't trying to lie or steal or manipulate or get something from you. And to know that, you know, you kind of take that in with you at Graceway, and when you walk in, you're getting something from other people, but it's the grace of God.
Graceway is a 501c3 nonprofit, faith-based, long-term recovery community for women right here in Albany. Down the street, we're the neighbors down at 412 West 5th Avenue. So we're right in the shadow of the steeples of First Presbyterian and other churches and downtown businesses. We're a mission that allows women who are serious about starting a new way of life to turn their lives over to a power greater than themselves. We call him God, and ask him to do for them what they are unable to do for themselves. So we utilize the 12-step methodology of Alcoholics Anonymous and treat women with alcoholism, substance abuse, cutting, eating disorders, a bounty of different compulsive addictions in a faith-based, long-term, sober living, very loving but strict and structured recovery community. We're for women only. The minimum stay here is probably 6 to 18 months, so it is required that they have time to cycle through this thing we call recovery, and to be under the mentorship of experienced staff members, those that have also gone on this journey of recovery, who are very willing and able and versed in sharing their own experience, strength, and hope with these newcomers. As you know, Graceway is a nonprofit recovery community for women. We opened our doors of recovery 10 years ago in order to serve women and satisfy an unmet need in Albany and Southwest Georgia, for that matter, for women that were desperately seeking freedom from the bondage of addiction. Over time, women in their sobriety look for enhanced life skills and training opportunities and an ability to go ahead and pursue their education. And we believe that that's part of becoming whole in mind, body, and spirit. So we actually suggest and encourage women that if they have not received their GED, let's get it while you're here. If you quit college in the midst of your addiction, let's see about what we can do to get you started again, and go on to lead the joy-filled, productive life that's called recovery, and to become all that God originally intended them to be. The great moms, the great students, the great daughters and wives, and to spread that joy to others and invite them into a new life. Behold, I do a new thing.
Graceway taught me that, you know, I programmed my brain for 11 years to deal with things in a way that was not okay. You know, I dealt with things with drugs and alcohol. And Graceway also taught me how to grow up, because unfortunately I made a choice to drink and use, But the thing was, is as I was doing that, like society like overpassed me. It learned how to do all of these things, and I didn't know how to do these things, which made me feel like a failure because I'm a mother. I should know how to do these things. I should know how, but I never did. So in the house, it was, yes, it was a lot about chores and cooking and cleaning, but the biggest thing was the one-on-one intensive counseling. The groups, we have 4 to 5 groups a day, but the intense counseling, and we're talking about counselors and therapists that are there one-on-one for an hour, and you know how much that costs, and they're there 24/7. So being able to go in there, go into the office and talk to counselors was huge to me because I had core issues, and my core issues were abandonment. I placed a child for adoption when I was 16 years old. I got pregnant when I was 15, but at 16 I placed a child for adoption. That was a huge secret, and so that's when my disease was actually activated. So Graceway was able to go back that far and go, okay, let's start here. Then we went to the death of my children, which is crisis and trauma therapy. Then we went to the suicide of my husband. And then we taught, and addiction was first, but, addiction is like a satellite issue. Those issues, abandonment, and those are core issues of why you use, because addiction, drugs and alcohol are just a side effect of how we feel inside. So Graceway takes the addiction and takes care of that, but then they go deeper and they start to deal with the things that are really inside of you that make you use, because we always say, if you relapse, it's not that moment that you relapse. You actually relapse 2 weeks prior to that. And, they teach you how to catch those red flags to be able to say, okay, something's going on with me, I don't know what it is, and talk about it, and they give you the solution. But, the greatest thing I learned at Graceway, and this is going to sound strange, is when I was dealing with my husband's suicide, I learned at Graceway that my husband's suicide is my greatest manipulation tool. I can get anything I want. I can tell you, oh, poor me, I've had 2 children that died. I have 2 living children. My husband killed himself. I can tell you this story, and I can get anything that I want. And I don't know any other treatment center that can make you realize that, and in the same sense, let you know it's not your fault. But that's how I work. That's how I work as an alcoholic. And today, it's like the Old Testament and the New Testament. My old life and my new life, and then there's the gospel. It is God's story, and He allowed me to walk through all of these things. And today, I'm still a manipulator. I manipulate the girls to stay in recovery. I manipulate the girls to make good choices. I rhyme and reason with them, just like I did in my old behavior. All of my curses have become gifts. And
we would like to offer indigent care recovery scholarships to local women here forever at Graceway. And what that means is for the first 4 intense months of their recovery, they would have all of their food, all of their transportation, all of their shelter, all of their counseling, the intervention, the random drug screens, the interactions with family members, if there are any family members left to talk to provide basically all of their needs for the first 4 months of intense recovery. After 4 months, they go to work and they become responsible and accountable and can do this on their own. But the gift from First Presbyterian and faith-based communities and donors that is most valuable to us is to open that door of recovery and invite them on in to begin the journey.